Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome into the latest edition of Tider Insider Television, presented by Visit Tuscaloosa, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVOA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris, and I will warn you, I have been battling sinus drainage and cough for a while. I'm going to try to make it through without a cough. I've gotten a lot better, but hopefully I'll get through it cough-free. But just in case, be prepared, because there may be a point in time when I'm not able to do it. But we've got a lot to talk about. That's one reason I'm worried about my voice giving out, is we got so much to cover. And we're going to start with Alabama men's basketball, Rodney. We talked about a couple weeks ago, this team needed to get on a little bit of a roll, and boy, has it ever. 6 wins in a row for Alabama, 4 games remaining. And I'm telling you right now, there's every reason to believe Alabama could win 9 of its last 10 conference games. They got Mississippi State at home tomorrow night, at Tennessee Saturday. That will be tough. At Georgia next week, and then at home against Auburn a week from Saturday to close out the regular season. But this team, you know, they went through the Charles Bediako situation. We'll have more on his status in a moment. But, Rod, you got to get it turned on toward the end of the season and in time for the postseason. That's what this team is doing. I think the goal, and I think it's a very realistic goal, is to get a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. If they win 3 of these last 4, I think they're going to be able to do that. And what's happening now is this team's starting to get healthy a little bit, Rod. Sherrell has stepped it up, particularly since Bediako was ruled ineligible. And this team is starting to flash the potential that we knew it had at the right time of the season.
Yeah, I think all the pieces are kind of seem to be coming together, like you said, Gary. I mean, they're healthy now, or they're healthier. And I think you mentioned Sherrell. I think he's kind of the story of the last couple of weeks, the way he's developed. He's had a couple of double-doubles. He had not even had a double-double in his career here. But so I think his emergence in the paint's been really good. And, again, like you said, I think the pieces are starting to come together this run. They won 6 in a row. Look, it's the longest streak of the year. They're playing their best down the stretch, and that's when you want to be playing well.
Yeah, last week in the NCAA release, their top 4 seeds, 16 total. Alabama was not among them. But as I said, if you finish with 3 wins in your last 4, you win 9 out of 10 headed in the SEC tournament. Listen, I'm not saying they can't win them all. I mean, this is a team. Tennessee has out Alabama's number, but they can win up there. But I think you go 3 of 4, you finish 9 of 10, win 1 game in the SEC tournament, and I think you're going to be on that top 16 leads, line, top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, like we talked about, and that's huge.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Again, winning your last 10 is pretty tough to do, obviously. We talked about it after the Florida game, Gary, when they got blown out. We said, listen, look, Nate Oats has got a penchant for getting his team turned around, especially after a blowout loss like the one they had to Florida, and they've won 6 in a row since. They've really been on a roll. But you talked about these last 4 games, obviously Mississippi State, and then you've got Tennessee coming up, which has beat Alabama 5 times in a row. Alabama had them last year, had them beat in Knoxville, found a way to lose that game. So, again, one at a time, you want to take Mississippi State. But I think this team is right where they want to be right now.
Yeah, beat LSU on Saturday night down in Baton Rouge. And then last week on Wednesday in the midweek game, Rod, it was unbelievable. 117 to 115, double overtime win over Arkansas at Coleman Coliseum. Yeah, winning on the road is great, but you got to protect your home court. Alabama has lost there twice already this season in the SEC, one other time against Purdue. And this was a game where Darius Acuff Jr., the freshman point guard, went for 49 points. Now, Filine had 35 himself, but for Alabama to gut this win out at home, a win that was huge for them, and then to still have enough juice to go on the road Saturday and win, that's big now, because an emotional win like that, they were a little tired-legged at the end of that LSU game, but they got out of there with a dub.
Yeah, I was really concerned about that game. You have it a dramatic win the way they did. Obviously Alabama was down by 14 in the second half. The way they rallied was pretty amazing. You go to double overtime. You think, man, this is an emotional win. It's in front of the home crowd. You're gassed after a game like that. But the way Alabama bounced back at LSU, I thought it was going to be a really tough game. The way they kind of gutted that game out, won by 7. It's a really good win on the road, especially when you consider, what happened with the Arkansas game, the way it was such a dramatic fashion.
All right, Rod, and that is going to lead us into Coach Talk. Tomorrow night, as we addressed, Alabama will have to deal with the second-best scorer in the SEC with just 4 games remaining. That is, of course, Josh Hubbard. They already faced Darius Acuff Jr. last week. He's the second leading scorer, or for number 1 leading scorer. Hubbard is the second leading scorer. And Alabama doesn't really have a lockdown defender. That's something that they have not had so far this season. But this afternoon, head coach Nate Oats said guarding Hubbard could be a big opportunity for one of the Tide's reserve guards. He's been used not that often lately, Javel Bethia.
We could certainly use his shot-making athleticism. I think he could be a great matchup on Hubbard because he's got length and athleticism. Film study's been high. He's been in on it. He's got great points on, guarding Hubbard. So I think his mind's where it needs to be to help us make a run here in March.
Bethia's only averaging 8.8 minutes per game this season. Likely the reason that Oats is so bullish on him tomorrow night is how he played in the first matchup with Mississippi State in Starkville. He had 20 minutes played in that game, had 5 points, 5 rebounds, and an assist off the bench. And certainly, Rodney, as you're looking for depth down the stretch, Bethia's a guy, was a high school All-American, McDonald's All-American, signed with Miami, hasn't done a lot this season so far, but it sounds like his time could be coming.
Yeah, 5-star recruit. It was a big transfer when he announced he was coming here. I mean, obviously a lot of expectations. I know he's been a little bit injured. Certainly a very talented guy, a guy that, Gary, coming off the bench, if he can kind of give you something, that's just another guy in the rotation that I think you can probably depend on.
Yeah, got to keep it going. And Saturday, as we're looking at some highlights from a Tennessee game earlier this season. You get past Mississippi State tomorrow night. Final thought on trying to kind of vanquish Rick Barnes in Tennessee, which is at Alabama's number.
It's just amazing. I mean, again, I think Alabama has to find a way to shoot the three. 8 straight games, Alabama's hit 10 or more threes. It's a pretty amazing streak. They're going to have to be able to do that in Knoxville.
All right, we saw Charles Bediako there, so let's get to the latest effort for him to return to college basketball. That was denied today again by Tuscaloosa County Circuit Judge Daniel Pruitt. Bediako sought interim injunctive relief, which would have allowed him to play college basketball while the case is pending. They have decided, he and his attorneys, to take this all the way to the Alabama Supreme Court, hoping for a different result, but I don't even know when the Supreme Court will be able to get to this. Now the interim relief he was hoping for has been denied. And the university put out a statement on Monday. Now listen, Nate Oats is going to back Charles Bediako the way, but the university put a little distance between themselves and this case, saying, quote, "We understand that Charles is pursuing an appeal in his case against the NCAA. And ultimately, he must do what he considers to be in his best interest. The university continues to support Charles as he works toward completing his degree." Nowhere there, Rodney, did it say anything about him playing basketball again for Alabama.
I'd be surprised. I mean, I know I don't blame Charles for investigating every avenue to try to get his eligibility. I don't think it's going to happen. I've talked to, a lot of attorneys, Gary. They don't think it's going to happen. So be a real surprise.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see Charles Bediako in an Alabama uniform again. All right, let's get to the Alabama women. Huge win on Sunday down in Florida. Winning on the road in Gainesville, 76-71. This is an Alabama team that the tough part of the schedule is down the stretch. And you know what? This is a game I just think they had to flat out get, because with what they've got coming up at Vanderbilt on Thursday night, then at home against Texas on Sunday. Those are 2 of the top 5 teams in the country. Rod, this is one that they needed. A road win. They got Jessica Timmons' career-high night with 34 points. So Alabama is going to make the NCAA tournament. I'm pretty confident. Obviously, if they could win one of these last 2, that would be huge for them. But this is one that they had to have.
That was number 21, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, big win on the road, obviously, for the Alabama women's basketball team. You mentioned what they've got coming up. It's going to be a real tough chore to win one of those, much less both.
Yeah, but getting that one on the road was big. I think Alabama's done enough to get in the NCAA tournament already. Of course, the SEC tournament next week, but don't count them out. I'm not saying they can't win, but I think it's very unlikely they would win in Nashville against Vanderbilt or at home against Texas. But still, as Rodney said, 21 wins this season, and that is a pretty good number. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, Alabama softball is opening the season as hot as you can get, and they remain that way this afternoon. We'll talk about the fast start for the Crimson Tide ladies, and Alabama baseball, after starting off with a loss, has turned it around. They swept the series over the weekend against Rhode Island. They've won 7 in a row, playing down in Hattiesburg tonight against Southern Miss. We'll have the latest on softball and baseball coming up, and a little bit later on, we'll be getting your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, that phone number, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. You can email us at the address on your screen. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only, Tider Insider TV. And welcome back to Tider Insider Television. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Alabama softball is rolling. You know, I had Patrick Murphy on my radio show before the season, and he had a confidence about him that, you know, it wasn't arrogance, it wasn't false bravado. You could tell he believed this team had the pieces to be special. Now, it's still early in the season, Rod, but this Alabama softball team looks every bit a national championship contender. In action this afternoon at home against in-state rival UAB. Of course, UAB has never beaten Alabama, and they wouldn't come close today. Third inning, Crimson Tide already up 2-0. Salem Hawkins, a 3-run blast. And that was all that Jocelyn Brisky and that Alabama pitching staff, which has been dynamic, would need. They have been outstanding. She was in the circle. She was mowing them down. She would also get help from the freshman, Caitlin Palazzi, in this game as Alabama rolls in 5 innings. This was an hour and 16 minutes is what it took to play this game. 8-0 the final. Crimson Tide moves to 14-0. They host the annual Crimson Classic this weekend with games against St. Thomas, USF, and Kent State. Now, Rod, when I said Coach Murphy was confident, what I mean about this is you could tell he finally felt like that they had everything in place.
Yeah.
Speed, power, defense, pitching, depth, all the things that you need, not just to be good, but as we talk about, but to be great. Yeah. And so far they've looked apart.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You know, there's been some grumbling about Murphy's last few teams, but what a job he's done with this one. I mean, you look at the balance that they have. You talked about the speed that they have, the fielding, the pitching's 3 deep. I mean, they've got a lot of quality on this team, and you know, the fast start that they've had. And again, the balance is the thing, Gary, I think, when you look at it, because we've seen some of these teams in recent years that hadn't quite had that pop at the plate. This one looks like it's got some pop. And
the test was supposed to be Florida State this past weekend at a tournament down in Tallahassee and the Collegiate Club Classic. And Alabama played Florida State twice. They beat them twice. And this was a team that was in the top 10. Now Alabama's finally in the top 10 after being picked 9th in the SEC. But, Rod, I'll give you an interesting stat. They played 14 games. They've given up 12 runs so far.
Wow.
In 14 games. And remember, Brisky wasn't ready to go to start the season. The freshman Vic Moten has been dynamic in the circle. Palazzi threw a perfect game in this tournament, the 6th in program history, and now Brisky is back. And, you know, remember we talked about that opening series when they hit 18 home runs in that opening tournament. So the pitching has been dynamic, 12 runs given up in 14 games. The defense has been stellar, and now they're hitting those home runs, which is something maybe they've lacked a little bit the last few years.
Yeah, that's something that I think they've really needed is the pop at the plate. It looks like they've got some this year, and you know it's only going to get tougher though once this SEC schedule starts. It's going to be playing against the best competition in the country.
As we said, the Crimson Classic this weekend. Alabama will host St. Thomas on Friday and look to remain unbeaten this season. All right, Alabama baseball did not start out as hot as the Crimson Tide softball team. They lost their season opener to Wazoo, but now they've reeled off 7 in a row, including their first Power of the Pink series over the weekend against Rhode Island. And Alabama gets the 3-game sweep, and they're playing down in Hattiesburg tonight in a tough matchup against Southern Miss. But what's happened, Rod, with Alabama baseball, their pitching had been pretty strong. They struggled to hit last week at Sanford at home against Alabama State. They got the bats cranked up in this series against Rhode Island.
Yeah, I mean, look, they were impressive. I thought, you know, obviously scoring 19 runs in that first game on Friday night. I mean, they have got the potential to be really explosive offensively. You talked about the pitching too. This team, I know Rob Vaughn, you have him on your radio show. He seems to be really optimistic about this team as well.
Yeah, he says he's got more depth probably than any team he's had, including all his teams at Maryland. And that makes a difference when you get into SEC play, not just having to run the same guys out there every weekend. As we said, a tough one tonight down in Hattiesburg. This has become a big rivalry against Southern Mississippi. And then this weekend, they'll really be tested when they head to Frisco, Texas to play Iowa, Oregon State, and Houston in the Frisco Classic. All right, we've got much more to come here on Tider Insider Television. Ty Simpson is going to throw at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. I think that's huge for him, and we'll discuss that when we come back. Plus, your phone calls. We're ready to take them on the Decades Pub and Grub hotline at 205-348-9882. Go ahead and call in now, Tider Insider Nation. We want to hear from you. Plus, you can email us as well if you'd like at the address on your screen. We'll be right back with more Tider Insider TV here in Tuscaloosa. Stay with us. According to a report from the NFL Network's Tom Pelissaro, former Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson will throw at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. Now, he is thought by many to be the second best quarterback available in the draft, behind, of course, Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner from Indiana. But, Rod, there were questions that came up during the second half of the season. You know, those first 9 games, his statistics were unbelievable. And not so much as Alabama finished out the regular season, the SEC championship game, and the college football playoff. But we have found out now that he had dealt with a gastrointestinal issue. He lost a lot of weight, down from about 213 into the low 190s, and played with that going on. So he deserves some credit for that. But certainly his stamina, his physicality, his strength was affected by this. Now he's back up to over 210 pounds. I think he's going to show well in this combine, and I think he's going to solidify himself as the second best quarterback in this draft.
And I think that was only one of his issues. He had a lot of physical, he was banged up quite a bit, Ty, and, he didn't have a running game. So a lot of it was on him. I think this is a perfect setting for Ty. This is where he's going to shine. I think he can make a really big impression at the combine, and I think he shows a lot of confidence on Ty's part throwing. He wants to show what he can do. And again, I think this is a really good stage for him.
Of course, Alabama with numerous players at the combine. It starts on Thursday, but the quarterbacks won't participate until Saturday. We can't wait to see Ty try to continue a recent tradition of Alabama quarterbacks in the draft, and not only in the draft, but first rounders as well. All right, time to take some phone calls on the Decades Pub and Grub hotline. Remember, Decades Pub and Grub, downtown at Timerson Square. The Clark family makes everything from scratch. Try out their incredible sandwiches, salads, and more. That's Decades Pub and Grub. All right, Sammy in Walker County is going to lead us off. Hey, Sammy.
Thanks, Gary, and hello, Rodney and Gary.
Hey, Sammy.
Guys, in the NFL preseason last year, I saw a guy hit a 70-yard field goal, and every week it was something like that all year long. I'm wondering what they're drinking in the water in the NFL compared to the college ranks, and I'd like to hear y'all's thoughts on that, guys.
All right, Sammy. Well,
thanks.
Okay. Yeah, one thing now, you got to remember, they're older once they get in the NFL. And there's some guys in college kicking them a long way too. But the NFL, it's a job. You get weeded out very quickly. So I think it's only natural, just like it is at other positions. Guys that were great in college, but by the time they're 3 or 4 years in the NFL, they're bigger, stronger, faster even than they were in college. It's the same thing with the kickers. Plus, I know the way that they're able to handle the footballs and things like that. But there's a lot of college kickers that can boom it as well. But yeah, it's always going to be. Kickers in the NFL are going to have a little more distance than the kickers in college. That's just the natural progression of it.
Yeah, and this is a 55-yarders routine now in the NFL. I mean, it's pretty amazing, Sammy. I agree with you the way, the distance that they have. And Will Reichert had a pretty good year, too. I know he had a couple of 60-yarders.
He was fabulous.
Yeah.
He was absolutely fabulous. All right, let's get back out on the Decades Pub and Grub hotline and welcome in Harold from over in Anniston. Hey, Harold.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Doing great, man.
Hey, Rodney, man, I want to give you credit, man. You said, I think almost last year, you said, man, Alabama women's softball need to get them some hitters. And you're right, man. I watched a couple of games. They are dynamic. I want to ask you, though, do you think the day of that slap hitter, run up there and slap the ball is over with? Because it looks like those ladies, they're laying that wood on that ball now.
Yeah, Rod, we did talk about that last year. Listen, I think there's always going to be a place for a slapper. If you're really, really fast and you can get out of that box, you're going to have an opportunity, just to put the ball in play and get. But now it is more of a power game. Years ago there were a lot of 2-1, 3-2 softball games, 1-0 softball games. There weren't nearly as many home runs, and you had to scratch out runs. And the way you did that was getting runners on base, stealing bases, hitting them over, slapping, putting pressure on the defense. Now, with more runs being scored, you're looking to hit the ball with a fence. And Alabama has got a lot more pop. So I don't know if the slappers, Rodney, are going to be gone from the game, but they're certainly not going to be as prevalent as they've been in the past.
Yeah, I think there's obviously some value to them. But, I don't think you can have a lineup full of them. And, there's been times I've watched Alabama and I said, man, you got one or two that can knock it out of the park. And then you're watching some of these other teams, they're lining up 6 or 7 that can jack it out. So, adding some pop, I think that's going to be really big for this team.
And Alabama has done that. Thanks for the phone calls. We got more phone calls to come. Also, our email question of the day when we return to Tider Insider TV. Alabama Gymnastics, once along with Georgia, UCLA, and Utah, were the most dominant programs in college gymnastics for many years. There was only 4 that won a national championship. It's different now. A lot more teams competitive. Auburn's one of them. Alabama had not won at Neville Arena since 2018 until Friday night. The Tide got it done. They were outstanding as they went over 198 and win at Neville Arena last Friday night down at Auburn. All right, it's time to get to our email question of the day. It's brought to you by KDM Service Corporation, serving your family like our family. Here's our email question of the day. Outside of quarterback, what is the biggest position battle you're looking forward to in the spring? Rodney from Neil and Hansel.
Well, listen, when you talk about position battle, I'm looking at a position. I'm talking about the offensive line. I think overall, you could have 4 starters, Gary, that weren't even on the roster last year. Not much experience on that offensive line in terms of returning. Obviously, you got some guys in the portal that I think are going to be really, really good. But I think the offensive line is really a key spot this spring.
I'm looking forward to running back.
That'll be another one.
I really am. And you know, because there's so many guys that are going to be pitching in here, including the freshman Crowell. There's Daniel Hill. So A.K. Deere.
Kevin Riley.
So, yeah, but you need the offensive line to block. So I think both those positions, along with, of course, the offense is where both these position battles are.
And then the defensive line, the starting group got wiped out. So you're bringing in some new guys there. So both sides of the line of scrimmage really important.
All right, thanks for the phone calls and the emails. We're going to come back and wrap up this edition of Tider Insider Television right after this timeout. Bama in the NFL update, retirement news, former Alabama center Bradley Bozeman hanging up the cleats after 8 seasons in the National Football League. Of course, played in-state at Hanley High School down in Roanoke and was a great player at Alabama. And he is married, by the way, to former Alabama basketball player Nikki Hegstetter. And they have 3 young children, Rodney. He expressed a desire to spend more time with his family. But, yeah, listen, man, as a 6th-round draft pick by the Ravens in 2018, he started 110 games in an NFL career for 8 years. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good career,
Great career here at Alabama. You know, played center, played guard, really versatile, certainly a leader, played on national championship team, had a great 8-year career. Yeah, congratulations to him and Nikki on getting to enjoy life outside of having to play in the National Football League. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of TITV. A reminder, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 or anytime at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you with more video, former Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson as he prepares for the Combine. We've got some practice video of him with Alabama. I think he's going to make that first round. I really do. Wouldn't be surprised if he winds up moving up in maybe the top 10 pick. Good night, everybody.